This strategy wins at over 80% in golf, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. Now, if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you smash that like button so that way it gets these videos out to the right people and everybody can benefit off of being a better sports bettor. Now, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, the first thing, let's talk about what bet we're going to look at here, okay? So, first off, we're talking about what? Golf. Not a lot of people like to bet on golf and don't know that there's actually ways to profit within golf, but there is, okay? And there's one bet that I like in particular, and the strategy behind it is impeccable. All right, it is called to make the cut. Okay, so what does that mean? To make the cut, that means that the golfers literally have to play 36 holes and still be above half of the field to be able to make it to the weekend and play Saturday and Sunday. Okay, you're looking for golfers to be able to play the full tournament. Okay, not be out after 2 days. So with golf, a lot of people like to go and bet matchups, all right? Or they like to go and bet who's going to win the tournament. So matchups are not too bad, and I do have a strategy around that I'll get to probably a little bit later. But to win, it's very hard, okay? It's pretty much like you're just picking one person out of 100 people that you're hoping is going to win a tournament that needs to play 4 solid days of golf. So the probabilities behind that are very, very minimal. It's very hard to be able to hit a bet like that. As for the cut, what you're talking about here is basically they just have to be as good as half the field. They just got to beat half of the field to make it to the weekend. So where do we find the actual strategy behind this is we have to get in depth with the actual players and the tournament that they're playing in. So the first thing that we want to look at here, okay? First thing is going to be the tournament, all right? We want to look at the tournament that they're playing in, where they're playing at, what golf course that they are playing at, because this is going to be the most important part of the strategy. Now, once we find the exact tournament and the exact course, okay, that's another thing, it's going to be the course. Once we find those two, now what we want to do is we want to slim down exactly, make sure that the tournament that they're playing at, they've always played at the same course, okay, not a different course. We don't want to use data from a different course. We want the course that they're playing at on that tournament. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to cut down all the players in the field down to players that play the best at this course. Now, what you're going to get is you'll probably get a list of about 4 or 5 guys. Okay, you get about a decent list there that actually play at that particular course really well than the others that are playing in that tournament. And then what we're looking for here is how many times the player has made the cut at this course. And what we're looking for here is at least 80% of the time with at least 5 tournaments played. Okay, they need to have played in that tournament at that course at least 5 times. Now, once we have a list of those players, the next thing we need to follow is to make sure that they are in good form. Now, the reasoning behind this is because you could have some veteran players. All right, you could have some veteran players that are older and they've played at that course 20 plus times in that tournament 20 plus times, and they've made the cut 80% of the time. But the last time they made the cut was literally 4 years ago because now they're older and they, the game doesn't play the same as it did once before. So you got to make sure that they're in good form, okay? Recent form. Very important to make sure that they're in good recent form. Now, I'm going to give you guys an example of one of the tournaments when you use this strategy and how it ended up playing out. So the tournament that just went by, depending on when you're watching this video, it's about the beginning of the golf season, all right? It was the American Express tournament, okay? And what it showed here was we were able to get the field down to about 3 players. There was 3 players here, okay? First one was Si Woo Kim, okay? He played at this course, I think it was about 8 times. And he literally made the cut every single time. Every single time. So he actually had 100% win rate to be able to make the cut at this tournament. And lo and behold, he was literally up for the lead the whole entire tournament. Okay, he was neck and neck for the lead the whole entire tournament. I think he ended up finishing like top 5, something like that. All right, so that one, easy. And the odds for him on that were about minus 260. So you can see the tremendous value there, okay? Because what we have to do is to make this work, obviously, the odds have to be in our favor to be able to create an edge. Now, for this right here, our implied probability for him was 72%. But the actual probability, as long as he didn't get hurt in the tournament, right? We had 100% here. So what did that give us? That gave us a 28% edge. Crazy edge, right? And to be honest with you, that was pretty easy money throughout the whole weekend. Like I said, he was up for the lead most of the time. This is just one of the players that was an example. There were 3 of them that actually fit this criteria that were over 80%. So another one was Patrick Cantley. He was like 96%. And then another one was JT Poston. He was 87%. And all three of those had an actual edge. And all three of those finished in literally the top 20 of the whole entire tournament for the whole weekend. So that's just an example of how this works and how you can correlate this. But once you have your players, okay, and you have everything segregated down to just your certain players, you have to make sure that you have an edge with them as well compared to their implied probability to their true probability. Got to have an edge, okay? Because if it doesn't have an edge, then it doesn't make sense. So even though the player might be at 80%, well, if his odds are minus 600 to make the cut, it just doesn't really make sense to do that because you're still at a negative edge there. Now, if you guys want to fast forward through all these strategies and you want the best plays being sent to you every single day and also learn all the other strategies that I have that aren't on YouTube, make sure you guys click the link in the description. Now, the most important thing to discuss here is unit sizing correlating with this, okay? How do we bet our certain units on these plays? Because you got to make your money in the weekend. It's not something that's going to happen every single day, right? This is a once a week bet. So how you be able to, pretty much get the right unit size correlating with what the probability is, this is how you do that. All right, so for example, we went with, let's say that Siwoo Kim, okay? He was at, what, 100% pretty much. He was at 100% probability. So with that, you would do 5%. All right, so anything that is 93% and above, you're going to go 5%. All right, next one. For example, let's use JT Poston. He was 87%, pretty sure, okay? So in that realm, what we're going to do there is going to be 2%, okay? So 80% and above would be 2%. That's how you're going to be able to correlate exactly how you bet those actual players with the right unit size, okay? If you fall in between 90% and 93%, then that's going to be a 3% bet, okay? So 90 to 93%. This is the right unit sizing to correlate with your probability of that play actually winning. Now, we're only betting plays here that have 80% and above. That's why the strategy hits at 80% or above. All right, so anything below 80%, you're pretty much ignoring and you're not playing. All right, so again, 2% would be 80%, and that's 90%, okay? 89% to be exact, okay? Because then 90% to 93 is going to be 3%, and then above that would be your benchmark of 5%. Because obviously, like I said, if something has a 100% probability, just as long as he doesn't get hurt, that's where we want to have the most units on, because that's where it's going to make the most sense. And that's how you can profit week in and week out from golf.